Well, I'm doing this because it's possible connection, right?
You said what?
Taking pictures of
Oh, yeah?
Because otherwise, you get a picture of the camera.
My wife just had a hard time selling it. Yes. Yeah, I can go about once or twice. I think about every year once or twice. That's it.
Hey, it's not up, it only comes up on this, you know, it doesn't come up on the next.
Amazing.
Anywhere else, it's like on my home.
So, 34, 31, somebody. Maybe even 40. Somebody maybe even 40.
Here we are.
All right, House Education Committee will come to order. Members, please take their seats. All right, if members will record their attendance on the electronic voting system. All members voted. Clerk will close the roll. And we've got a quorum. All right, first of all, let me acknowledge that obviously we're celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King's work within our country today, with this being a federal and state holiday. It also means we have lots of visitors today because it is a federal and state holiday. But just want to acknowledge that and thank everybody for attending our first meeting. First thing I'm going to do this morning is review a couple of ground rules just so we all know and to remind our members and members of the public how we're going to operate this year. As we've done in the past, we will have a process that will work with our subcommittees, providing reports and bills before this committee, first and foremost on our agenda. And then if we have any presentations, we always do those after we've dealt with the legislative business that we have before us. We also encourage members of the public to participate in our meetings, in both the full committee meeting and the subcommittee meetings. And we want folks to feel welcome and to participate, but we also want to ask folks to abide by some basic ground rules. First of all, we ask that no signs and banners be brought into meetings. They can block the views of others. We also don't allow for chanting, singing, or shouting because that disrupts the business of this committee and our subcommittees. If members want to have a public display and they want to do that, that's fine, but we would request that you do that in Capitol Square, and you can arrange and schedule for a time to be able to do that. We also ask that if visitors and members of the public and our constituents want to speak on a piece of legislation and they haven't done so in subcommittee, that they would come to the podium and do that during the consideration of the legislation that would be of concern to them, and then we'd ask that they do that in an orderly fashion. We'd also ask that they would state their name and where they live would be helpful to the members, and also if they represent any specific group. We will usually have time limits, and we would ask that they would abide by the time limits that I would set, and that's generally what we've done in this committee, is about 3 minutes for speakers, both pro and con. And we also like to try to get through every speaker as much as we can, and that's why we do the time limit. This year, we anticipate, and I believe we've started, there's a video streaming camera that's already set up. I would ask that anybody that's going to video stream do that on the sides so that we don't disrupt the speakers and so the members can't see the members of the public that are coming to testify. So I believe they've set up an appropriate place, and I'd also ask our subcommittee chairman to basically designate areas where video streaming cameras or cameras in general can be set up, and I would encourage you to do that. We'd also ask those that are video streaming not to disrupt the speakers or the process of the meetings, and that we want to encourage them to be able to do that, but at the same time, we don't want it to be disruptive to either the members or the members of the public. Now, again, let me real quickly review kind of how we do business in this committee and subcommittee. As I mentioned, the order of business for the full committee will be to consider housekeeping matters first. For instance, motions to strike bills or re-refer or refer bills as needed. We will take up subcommittee reports, as I mentioned, and motions regarding bills that are in subcommittees. We will then hear individual bills before the committee, and then we'll receive any presentations, as I mentioned. Bills considered in subcommittee will not be heard in full committee again unless I believe that it's necessary to do so. Subcommittees will be directed to use one vehicle for legislation. We're not going to have various bills of the same topic, and that those bills would be amended as needed with whichever vehicle the subcommittee chairman determined. The patrons of other bills will be asked to co-patron the bill that is the vehicle for consideration, and I think that's only fair. The committee and subcommittees will be following the memorandums that the Speaker's Office has sent to us related to various practices, and the subcommittee chairman, I believe, have had copies of those. If you don't, let me know. We'll make sure you get another copy. The committee and subcommittees this year will be utilizing the iPod queue system for members, both on and off the committee, to sign up and to be notified when their respective bills will be considered. We used this in the House Appropriations Committee last year, and we are going to try to use that in this committee this year. The subcommittee assignments will remain the same as they were last year, but there's one exception. With the election of former Delegate McClellan to the Senate, we are down one member, and we've not been appointed a replacement member at this point. We may or may not be getting a member before the end of session. Depends on when the special election and whether that person or individual that's elected in the special election or elections is appointed to this committee. Becky has provided you a copy of the subcommittee membership listings, and the times and locations, I believe, remain the same. So you will be going to your various subcommittees as you have in the past. Now, having said all that, do any of the members have any questions related to kind of the ground rules? Or any of the subcommittee chairmen want to make any additional announcements? All right. Then let's get to our order of business. The first order of business is we have, at the patron's request, we have House Bill 1421, and at the request of the patron, he has asked that that bill be stricken from the calendar. And there's a motion and a second to strike from the docket House Bill 1421. Any questions regarding that motion? All those in favor of striking House Bill 1421 say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That bill is stricken from the calendar. Next, we have Delegate LeMonnion's Code Commission Correction Bill, House Bill 1538, and I believe that there's also a technical line amendment that we probably need to have reported. Ryan, do you want to report that for us?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This would be on page 16 of the bill, line 942, after BOCA code, insert or any successor code.
Move the amendment.
Second.
Does everybody understand the amendment? All those in favor of adopting that line amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, Delegate LeMonnion, you want to explain this great Code Commission bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. The members may recall that in the 2016 session, General Assembly passed the recodification of Title 23, which is of course the higher ed title. That was a result of 2 years' worth of work on the Code Commission, and as those recodifications go, whether it's higher ed or any other title, they invariably miss a couple of things here and there, and so in the operation of that recodified title, a few technical corrections were found to be needed, and so that's what 1538 does. Since the Code Commission approved this bill, it was brought to our attention that the VOCA code, which you just referenced in this amendment, is actually no longer the name of the code that's used. And so rather than try to rename it, we just said any successor code. So if the code comes up with a new name in the future, we don't need to go back and amend the code of Virginia.
Move the report as amended.
Second.
All right, there's a motion to report as amended House Bill 1538. Does any member of the committee have any question related to House Bill 1538? Does any member of the public wish to comment on House Bill 1538?
Not you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm good. And just so members, you can use your request to speak, that's the RTS button on your new electronic panel if you need to speak or request to speak. All right, seeing no questions and no testimony from the public, all those in favor of reporting as amended House Bill 1538, please record your vote on the electronic voting system. All members voted. Let's wait for delegate poll.
Got it.
Okay, he's here. Okay, clerk will close the roll. That bill's reported 21 to nothing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Delegate Romani. All right, the only other business we have today is to hear a presentation from Dr. Hahn, who is the Executive Director of the Virginia High School League. They just recently did some reorganization within the Virginia High School League, and I know members of this committee are very interested in the league and their function and their responsibilities, so we thought it would be a good idea to have him come and just update us on the changes they're making at the league and to see if you all have any questions.
Good morning, Chairman Landis and members of the House Education Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to come here today and share information with you about the transitions and the work taking place at the High School League. I have provided, there's only about 10 slides, I promise I won't PowerPoint you to death, but there are some slides on here. The first couple actually are background information, some historical information I think that you'll want to see and make sure that you understand so that you can understand about the transition. So thank you for the opportunity, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have. First slide's pretty simple. This is the mission of the Virginia High School League. That can be found on our website, found in our handbook. The most important part of this mission statement to me is that we talk about promoting education, leadership, sportsmanship, character, and citizenship for students by establishing and maintaining high standards for school activities and competitions. Recently, we are in the process of doing a new strategic plan, and one of the survey questions that we asked was, do you support the mission statement along the way? And 95% of the respondents said that they support the mission statement and believe this is very accurate with the work that we do. Real quickly, a little bit about activities and participation. We have 316 member schools. That is all of the public schools in Virginia, public high schools in Virginia, plus one private school. Last year, we had approximately 195,000 participants in 27 different sports and 12 academic activities that we sponsor. We recognize 162 different state championships, and we also sponsor a state leadership conference, and approximately 900 students who participate in that every spring. The one piece of information that's not on this slide is that we are working very diligently to next year to add 3 new state championships, and they would be in the areas of technology. There's a lot of interest from our schools to do that. We would offer a state championship in robotics. We would offer a state championship in cybersecurity, and then we we're looking at offering a state championship and coding. Hackathon is basically the term that a lot of people use. I probably want to move away from that because people hear the word hackathon, I think we're teaching them to do something that's not good. But in the technology world, people understand what that means. So we're very excited about that. Our schools have said they're very interested in doing that. We've talked to organizations like the FIRST organization, Cyber Patriot, to help us with those. We are now out pursuing funding to help add those new state championships. I know this is very small, I apologize, but I did want to put up a list of, here's the academic activities that we sponsor, here are the girls' sports, here are the boys' sports that we offer. Real quickly, just a quick historical piece. The Virginia High School League has been around for a long time. It originated in 1913, began at the University of Virginia to actually sponsor debate in about 20 schools. In 1946 is when we started talking about classifying schools. There were a number of schools, a large number of schools at that point participating, so they started classifying based on size. In 1960, went to the region concept throughout the state. Then in 1970, we went to the classification where we actually did single A, double A, and triple A schools based on the size of the schools. And at that point, there were 4 regions in each classification. In 2013, schools started noticing that there was some inequity. By only having 3 divisions, single A, double A, and triple A, that there was a lot of inequity. To give you an example, in group triple A, the schools in the largest classification state range from 713 students all the way up to 2,900 students. That's a difference of 2,187 students. So there was a lot of inequity going on. There was difference in group A of as much as 830 students. So at that point is when the executive committee and the membership decided that we needed to go to a larger number of classifications rather than 3, we need to go to 6. Currently, within the 6 classifications, we have the range in size from smallest to largest is about 400 students. So that has made a huge difference for us along the way. With the new 6 classification system also, there are only about 54 schools in each region, or in each classification. The number of state championships increased from 90 state championships up to 150 state championships, which has expanded the opportunities for more of our students in our public schools to be able to participate in state competitions and earn state championships. In 2015, the league went back and evaluated how the 6 classification system working. There were some concerns. The way the system was done. There were travel issues. There were finance issues because the way that they did it with conferences, you had just schools from across the state with a lot of travel, therefore you lost a lot of your local rivalries, some of that piece that was there, and there was a loss of instructional time because of this travel piece along the way. So what the survey was unanimous about from our membership schools was they liked the 6 classifications, but we wanted to go back and address those areas. And the way they've done that is to go back to that 4-region concept that we had when it was only single A, double A, and triple A. Because when you do 4 regions, now you get back into a more local geographic type alignment of schools. So beginning with next school year, we will still have 6 classifications, group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but we would go back to the concept where there are 4 regions and 6 classifications. Talk to you a little bit about, try to familiarize, if you're not, with the governance. How does the Virginia High School League work? There seems to be this concept that we sit in Charlottesville in the league office and make the rules and pass them down to the schools, and that's not the way it works at all. Actually, we don't have the power to do that. Our membership is, like I said earlier, is 316 schools. And we have 2 membership meetings a year where all 316 schools come and can participate in the process. We have an executive committee that consists of 31 voting members. We have a chairman, we have a chairman-elect. On that executive committee, we have 12 principals, one from each region. We have one VDOE representative, we have 8 division superintendents on there, we have one VSBA representative, one citizen from the PTA representative, we have 6 athletic directors, and we have 2 members of the General Assembly on the executive committee. We meet 4 times a year to come together and meet. Also, each group board, each of the 6 classifications, group 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A, 6A, has a group board that meets. They meet twice a year. The 24 regions all have a council where they meet quarterly, some meet more than that. And then there are 42 districts that have a council as well. The way it works is this: anybody in any of those groups, any principal in any of our high school can recommend legislation. They can recommend a change to our bylaws or a new procedure or whatever we do. So what they do, they bring that to the executive committee, and we have a 2-vote process. The first vote, it has to pass by a majority vote. The second vote has to be 2/3 vote in order for something to pass. Even if the executive committee votes to change policy or votes to not change policy, the membership has the ability at their membership meeting to override that and come back and ask for a second vote, and then the membership can vote to do away with what the executive committee did, or to pass or deny a new rule. So we do have a provision where we can do emergency legislation if necessary. We try to stay away from that because we like the process where there is a first vote and a second vote in between. So what's going on with the reorganization? We've never had more than 12 regions, so when I said we had 31 folks on the executive committee, that number is going to change if we keep with the process we have now, where we have one principal from every region. Because we've never had more than 12 regions, but with the new formation of 6 groups and 4 regions, that will double. That will be 24 regions. So we have possibilities of how we want to reorganize and establish the new executive committee membership. What we did with that was we threw out a couple possibilities for staff, for the executive committee to consider. At the October membership meeting, we gave those opportunities, they gave those options to the membership to talk about. They actually added 3 additional. We gave them 3 options on how to reorganize. They came back with 3 additional. So we took those 6 options, we sent them out to the schools. We asked for them to do a survey and tell us the way that they wanted to go. So out of those 6, 2 of them came out with a greater than 50% vote. So what we've done is we've taken those 2 options, and now we're taking them back to the membership for more input and another vote for the executive committee as well. So whatever model we come up with on representation on the executive committee will come directly from the membership. This is not something that we are sitting in our offices, staff coming through and saying, this is the way it's going to work. We are out gathering information from our membership, from our schools, and hearing from them how they want to be represented in the new executive committee and in the new reorganization. We will make a final recommendation for first vote to the February executive committee. The membership will be able to give input again in March, and then a final vote will happen in May. The other thing that's happening right now is strategic planning. We're very excited about strategic planning because this is what's going to give us our direction. We want to hear from folks about where do you want the league to go, what do you want us to do. We did a survey during the month of December. We were very excited. We had 434 responses to that survey. If you would like to see that survey, you can go to the Virginia High School League website, and the results, all of the results with the comments that were provided are available for anyone in the public to see on our website. We've created a steering committee of 29 members, and we are currently in the process of going around the state to 6 different locations and having hearings and having people come in and be able to have conversation, participate in group discussions. We were in Harrisonburg last week. Wednesday and Thursday this week we are in Marion, Virginia. We're in Roanoke. The week after that we'll be in Prince William and Chesterfield counties, and then finally on February the 1st we will be in Portsmouth, Virginia. be able to come and participate in discussions around the strategic planning. As the league began transition in July with the new executive director, there were several topics that became a focus for the staff this year. Through the interview process, through the hearing process, there were 4 things that came to mind. A lot of topics. One was about alignment, one was about strategic planning. I talked about those. The third one was really a topic that had a lot of concern, was communication and awareness. The communication feedback that came to me and other staff members was communication from the league office and then communication to the general public. We are working on that very diligently. Communication from the league office, there's been this perception sometimes that there are decisions that are made top down or just handed down. I've said that before. In cases that was true. But that will stop. That's not going to happen anymore. We will not make decisions without gathering input from our member schools. Just won't happen. That's not the way to do business. I can give you 2 great examples how we've already implemented that. The National Federation implemented a new pitch count legislation that has to be in place by February this year. We actually did that as emergency legislation because we could have done 2 votes. We could have taken something to the executive committee in September and then finalized in December, but we wouldn't have had a chance to talk to our baseball coaches, talk to our athletic directors about what that should look like. So we took time, we brought in baseball coaches from around the state, we got their feedback, got their input, and helped create that legislation rather than us in staff office creating something and taking it forward. Our friends up in Loudoun County added field hockey to all of their high schools this year, which means that we had enough to create an additional state championship in Group 4 field hockey. In the past, 1 through 4 had always been a combined tournament. Now we had enough, so we wanted to do that, but since it was already in the middle of field hockey season, we didn't know whether it was the right time to do it this year or next year. So we actually did a survey. We got feedback from our athletic director and our field hockey coaches about did they want to add it this year or next year. Those may seem like simple things, but I think it means a lot to our membership when we go out and we talk to our coaches, we talk to our principals, we talk to our athletic directors about none of those things ended up being controversial, but having feedback from those principals, from those athletic directors, from those superintendents meant a lot to them, and it meant a lot to us when we took a recommendation forward to our executive committee to vote on. So that's how we're going to be doing business from now on in our office. We are actually working with the National Federation. There's a campaign going on nationwide. It's called #MyReasonWhy. And we're just trying to make more folks aware of the benefits of participating in interscholastic activities. We are going to be doing some public service news clips that we want to get on the TV about people talking about how their participation helped them in their careers and their life along the way. James Ferrier has already done our first clip for us. We'll be airing that here soon. If any of you would like to share your participation in high school and how you think your participation as a team member or playing on a team, participating in activities, we would love to have you come and do a clip for us as well. So please let me know if you're interested in doing that. But that's very exciting for us. The other thing that we want the public to know is this. We want them to know that extracurricular activities, that there's a lot of data, there's a lot of research. That students who participate do better in college, they do better as adults. I just finished serving, before this I finished serving 2 years with the Virginia Department of Education and working with the 5 critical, the profile of the learner, and the 5 C's. I think the things that happen in activities in our schools help promote those 5 C's. I think students learn to think. I think they collaborate as part of a team. I think critical thinking is a very important part of interscholastic activities. And certainly I think citizenship is huge. So we're very excited about that piece. So the other thing I'll say about communication is I'll be the first to admit, we probably have the worst website, dysfunctional website, in the state of Virginia. It has not been touched in over 7 years. So you can just imagine, as fast as technology has moved, we've done nothing. We are actually in the process, we put out an RFP, we have 6 bids. Next week, we will actually be bringing folks in to do presentation for us. We will be selecting a new company to build us a new website so that we can better communicate with our folks.
Dr. Hahn, you might be able to find some students that could help you with that.
Absolutely. Actually, the delegate ladies, what I'm looking for is building is one thing, but then maintaining it is another thing. So I'm actually thinking about some students helping us do that, because what I envision to be able to every morning, when I open it up, get the newspaper, I look at the sports page and see what's going on. I like to be able to click on the Virginia High School League website and see, how did we do last night? I was never so disappointed in my life. We had 2-day state golf tournaments. I was able to go out and visit the golf courses on the second day. The first day I had some meeting. So before I went, I was clicked on the website. I wanted to see how we do, who's winning, how's it going. There was nothing but this big white screen with nothing on it. That's not my vision of how you communicate well with folks. We do a great job. The media does a great job of covering the Virginia High School League football playoffs. You can open up the Saturday or the Monday after the last Friday night game. You can open up the paper and you can see the pairings across the state who's played. I can't find that for girls field hockey or for volleyball or cheerleading. I can't find those things. I want that to be on our website, so when a field hockey parent or coach wants to be able to do that, you can come and you can find those brackets. It may not be in the media. I can't ask them to put stuff in that's up to them, but we can. And we need to do better with that along the way, covering all of our sports and all of our activities and putting that stuff out there. I was able to watch a lot of the State One Act Place Festival. Those kids are amazing, the stuff I saw. But there was nothing on our website covering that. And we need to be able to cover all that stuff. So anyway, I could stand and rant and rave about communication and our website for a long time. But anyway, we're working on that. That's going to get better. The last thing is budget. Ever since we moved to the new configuration with six classifications and only 2 regions in each one instead of 4 regions, what the 2-region move did, it eliminated quarterfinal state playoffs. Okay? Because with 4 regions, you had to have quarterfinals, then you moved into state semifinals, then you moved into finals. Well, the state tournament, that's one of our sources of income. And when we eliminated quarterfinals, we eliminated a whole lot of revenue that went with that. So there have been budget issues over the last 3 years, and after analyzing what I've been able to see so far is the fact that losing those quarterfinals is what has created us to have budget deficits in the last 3 years along the way. So bringing those back as part of the new configuration will help us as well. The other thing we're doing with budget, we're analyzing everything. As we go through this year, any service contract that we have that expires at the end of this year, we're rebidding. We're putting everything out for bid. We want to make sure that we're getting the best deals, the best services available for the best price available, so we're doing all that. The other thing we're doing is this. We've been very fortunate. The University of Virginia Darden Business School has a service with their graduate students where they come out and work. They select nonprofits to help each year. So we have been selected by the Darden Business School. They have assigned 5 graduate students. They're going to come, they're going to analyze our budget, which is great because that's an outside view. So sometimes it's hard for us to do it because we're sitting on the inside looking at it. But the Darden Business students will be analyzing every aspect of our budget. They'll be looking at revenues. They'll be looking at corporate sponsorships. They'll be looking at our expenses. They'll be looking at the way that we do business. Also, part of that analysis, we will pick 4 or 5 other states that are similar to us and be able to get their budgets. And the Darden student will be able to analyze and say, here's how these states do it. This is how you're doing it. They'll be able to give us recommendations, say, continue to do this, change this, do differently. So we're very excited about that process, looking at the budget piece as well. this is the last slide I'll show you, and I'll be glad to answer your questions. When I took the job as the executive director, people kept saying, well, what do you do? What's Virginia High School League do? And people didn't really know. A lot of people don't know. So we went through and said, okay, we need 3 bullet points that we can use as our elevator speech, because people don't want to hear this 20-minute presentation every time. So what are the 3 things that I had to tell you, the 3 things that we do at the Virginia High School League? Number 1 is monitoring compliance. I make no apologies for that, because if we did, it would be the wild, wild west. We would have students transferring schools. I want to go to this school, I want to play over here, I want to do this. And they would just be moving wherever the best teams are, and there'd be no eligibility pieces. So I make no apologies for monitoring compliance, because it creates a fair playing field for all of the students in Virginia. The second thing we do, that's basically our mission statement. We provide activities and competitions. And then the third thing that I haven't spent much time talking about this morning is we provide education and professional development for our coaches and our officials. And that's extremely important because they need to be well educated, but there's also safety issues that go with this. We have them take coaches education courses, safety courses. The executive committee just passed legislation so that all of our coaches, even the ones who are not teachers, have to do the same requirements around first aid that our teachers do in order to get their license. So we think it's important to continue with the education piece for our adults that are involved in Virginia High School League as well. So that's my presentation. If I didn't answer your questions, I'll be glad to.
Dr. Hahn, thanks very much for that. We do have a couple questions. First, Delegate Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd encourage you to, I know the chairman said, talk to some of the kids about your website. Seriously speaking, there are several schools, and I'm sure Delegate Greason has some in Loudoun County as well, who are, the students are doing unbelievable, remarkably wonderful work in web design and graphic design. In fact, in Fauquier Kettle Run High School, if you call that principal, I think you'll get wowed on what they can do for you. And Forest Park and Prince William, I think, I'm looking at Jim Council down there playing with his phone, and I think Forest Park has a pretty good web-based program down there too. Mr. Chairman, here's a question. I had one slide
I
4.
wondered when you were getting to it.
On slide 4, you have your sports listed, and I'm curious as to why crew, or rowing, as some people call it, is not present either for men or women, particularly since it is an incredibly popular sport in both Fairfax County and Prince William County, and I believe in Matthews County as well, and some other counties around Virginia. Why? Is this because the crew folks don't want in, or you don't want them in, or no one's brought it up?
That's a really good question. Currently, the process in order to be recognized as a state championship in Virginia, you have to have 50 plus 1% of the schools participating in an event in order to recognize it as a state championship. I'm not saying that's good or bad, I'm just saying that's what's there now. And the reason that is there is because you want state championships to mean something. So how do you, some of the questions come up to you, would you recognize someone's a state champion if there's only 20 schools that participate in an event? And I'm not saying that's the case in crew, but we get a lot of questions. We got people who want to add bass fishing as a state championship. Girls wrestling is probably one of the hottest sports going out there that people want to add as a state championship. What we have done, sometimes until we get to the point of having enough schools to add as a state championship, we have actually sponsored like an open event where they can come and there's not state championship and crew for like group 3, group 4, group 5, group 6. It would just be a Virginia State Championship and crew where it being open event. So that's a long answer to a short question.
Delegate Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just as a matter of record, the there is a state championship within the crew organization as it's currently configured now. And I would really encourage you to relook that criteria, because I think you're missing a huge opportunity. You may not know that there is a national championship every year where Virginia crew teams from Virginia high schools, both private and public, are competing with boats from Maryland, Delaware, Pennsylvania, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, up and down, some, I think from Indiana. Some of these schools come a very long way to participate in the national championship. And I gotta tell you, you have an excellent opportunity to be in a position where a Virginia team becomes the national champion. My daughter rode on the lightweight 8 in 2000, and they won the national championship. So, or I'm sorry, 98, and they won the national championship with Rich High. And so I think you're missing an opportunity because of the narrow nature of your consideration as to who gets in.
Yes, thank you. All right, Delegate Greason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You made a comment about the hackathon. I encourage you to stay as edgy as you possibly can. The kids don't want a watered-down name. They want to be part of something that's cool and edgy and maybe just a little bit outside the box. Don't let an executive committee of 31 men and women that look like me and you wearing suits walking around figuring out that that's just not proper. I think the kids would love to be part of a hackathon, and just don't overlook that as a comment.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, 2 quick questions. The number one thing I get in Loudoun County is, how do we move either soccer, girls soccer or girls lacrosse? They are both in the same season in the Commonwealth. They are not in the same season in North Carolina. They're not in the same season in Maryland. They're not in the same season in a lot of places, but you're limiting the girl athlete to put a lot of sports in spring, and spreading those out would be interesting. I get that question, I think, every weekend from someone in Loudoun County. And then lastly, the comment about the 2 regions. This is a compliment, moving to 4 regions. We've got kids on Tuesday night driving 2 hours to play a Tuesday night basketball game. So thank you for thinking about the 4 regions and moving away from that. My assumption is that'll cut all that down, and they'll be playing a little bit more in proximity to their neighbors. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, sir. All right,
Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Lance, can I have one
Sure,
comment?
go ahead.
One of the things that we're really looking at with going back to the 4 regions, it's a really balancing act, and we're really seeking a lot of input from our schools because, for example, in Group 6, we're going to have region A, B, C, and D. Well, basically, geographically, they're all pretty close to each other. So part of the issue is in state tournaments, they'll be able to set up a rotation where this year A will play B, next year A will play C, the year after they'll play A will play D. So they'll be able to figure out, when we get to Group 1 and Group 2, that's not the case. So we're going to have to let them have something. It may be where Region A plays Region B every year, Region C plays Region D every year. Because if you don't, you start taking A to D, you're talking about kids from Lee County or Wise County having to travel all the way maybe to Clark County or one of those places to play in the state quarterfinals, semifinals. So the real balancing act here is how you give autonomy to the regions and the districts to set things up the way they want, but to somehow keep some consistency within the state so that the system still looks similar when we get to the state tournament. So, but thank you for your feedback.
Delegate Dudenheffer.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. My question is the way that the districts are classified, Stafford County has 5 high schools. In fact, 2 of them are built on identical floor plans and are having additions to them. The growth across the county isn't always equal, so they're constantly considering redistricting or whatever. So but for the 5 Stafford high schools, 1 of them is in 6A South, and the other 4 are in 5A North. They're in the process of redistricting. Now, I never could understand why you separate it out. one high school where all of these high schools are within 5 miles of each other. The kids went to middle school together, they're friends, but they compete, and now you've got one of them that you've sent up north to participate in another district. And we talk about wanting to keep them to where they don't have to travel as much. If you travel up and down the I-95 corridor, you realize that while it might only be 8 or 10 miles, it may take you 8 or 10 hours to get there on a routine basis. So I guess my question to you is, how fluid are you in recognizing the changes in the capacities of the school? Do you look at the footprint of what the schools were actually built for, and that eventually that's the way the equilibrium point will even out? So, but the two schools built on identical plans are Colonial Forge High School and Mountain View High School. And by the way, they both have additions being put on them at this time. So what is going to happen there?
One of the things that we've done, and this happened before I came on board, but I think it's a great decision, is we used to realign schools every 2 years. Every 2 years we get the enrollment figures and you shift. And we had some schools that were shifting all the time. This year we're up, this year we're down. The district moved kids, so now that school's smaller enrollment, but now it's up. So we're going to a 4-year cycle to do that, rather than 2 years, to try to build some stability. Every 2 years we will go through and look and see where, but we've also put in a 5% buffer. So if your school is still within 5% of the largest school or the smallest school, you can stay where you are during the next 2 years, and we won't do that constant changing piece. The other thing that has happened that I'm very excited about is we had 2 districts, the Northwest District and the Evergreen District. They're over, a lot of the schools are over around Fredericksburg, I'm sorry, not around Fredericksburg, Warren County, some of the Loudon schools, those guys. So what they did, Winchester, Frederick County, they had 2 separate districts. They had, I think, 6 schools in one, 7 schools in the other. And they were running into that same issue about, we have schools within the same county, but we don't play each other. We've lost that rivalry. What they did something that's kind of I think it's very cool. They created a 13-team district, which is unheard of in the junior high school league, because we have a rule that says you have to play everybody in your district. But it sort of resembles what the NCAA is doing with the super conferences in athletics. So what those 13 schools are going to do is they're all either Group 3 or Group 4 schools. So the Group 3s have to play the 3s, the 4s have to play the 4s, but the rest of their schedule can be made up of playing somebody else. For example, Hanley High School's a 3, but they're sort of surrounded by a lot of 4s. So they have to play the 3s, but they don't have, but now they can still have place in their schedule to pick up James Wood or Millbrook or Sharanda or one of those Group 4 schools. So we're trying to get back where there's an organization piece where they don't have to travel, they can still play and do those kind of things, but then they're not playing against schools that have 500 or 600 or 700 more kids than what they have. So we hope that some of that's going to be a solution that people's going to look at and start thinking about.
Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Dudenhofer.
The high schools in the county where my kids went, they're built and they're not even designed to go over a couple of hundred one way or the other based on the road. And now again, we've got one that travels up 95 and the other 4 are in Stafford County. I would like for you, if you don't mind, to provide me with the raw data that showed that school needs to be separated out from the others. And I have no idea whether they want to be separated out. All I'm telling you is, having been involved in the high schools that are there as much as I have, that there's something I think wrong about the philosophy on how you're doing it. Otherwise, these 5 schools would all play each other. They're in the same county. They're close to each other, and they're close in size.
I'll be glad to get back to you.
Okay.
I would go back and also look at the numbers and see how that all divides out and what the new configuration starting 17, 18 looks like.
Okay.
Absolutely.
One last question, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Dudenhofer.
You're working on a strategic plan, which I assume looks to the future. My question is how are you integrating the Virginia Virtual School into that strategic plan?
That's going to be a piece of discussion. We don't know the answer to that, but we know that needs to be a piece that needs to work into that. We started working that because of Region 1 has the Code RVA school that they've done. as well, so we need to figure out how that incorporates, because I haven't been at DOE for a while. I know Cindy was here earlier, Cindy Hay was here earlier, but my understanding is the code RVA is not still, there's not a building. I can't drive up to the front of the building and go into code RVA and see that school, so that's a virtual piece, so that's under consideration. We're gonna have to look at that and see how that's gonna work, because that's something that we certainly are going to have to take into consideration as we move forward, absolutely.
Hey, one last thing.
Delegate Duke member.
The way education is being provided is changing. I mean, you can't deny that they're doing that. I mean, universities with online schools and whatever. So any plan that does not incorporate the students who are taking their education virtually, I think is wrong. Just because they don't have a classroom or a building you can shake a stick at, I don't think has any relevance to providing education. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Delegate Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it's fortuitous that I'm following up on Delegate Dudenhover's comment regarding virtual schools, because I would like to ask you about homeschoolers. Is there any move within VSHL to end their hostility towards homeschoolers and allow local school districts to decide if they want to allow homeschoolers to try out, because their parents are paying taxes and supporting the schools, just like those who attend the school, and it may help out some schools, especially in rural areas, as far as fielding a team.
Yes, sir. When I came on board in July, at the first new executive committee meeting in September, we actually did reconvene. Several years ago, there was a committee, a homeschool committee that studied this, but they haven't met recently. So we have reconvened a homeschool committee, and currently what we're doing is we're out looking at getting questions, finding out what the issues are. We've gone through and taken the two bills that were passed last year, I've broken those down and compared to what's in those compared to what the criteria is to be eligible for the Junior High School League. And we've been sharing that at our region principal AD meetings. I have been to 7 of the 8 superintendent region meetings since I've taken over, and I've shared that information with the superintendents there. So we are out there. Have we changed any position at this point? I don't think the membership has at this point, but there's certainly discussion going on about that information. So have we officially taken a vote that says we haven't changed our position? We haven't. But is a committee in place and asking questions and having discussion? The answer is yes. Thank you, sir.
All right, does any other member have a question? All right, if not, Dr. Hahn, we really appreciate you being here and look forward to hopefully a little closer association as we move forward. And I'm sure there'll be some legislation I've already seen that's been assigned to this committee that will be of interest to the VHSL. So we look forward to further discussions. And we really do appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much. And anytime I can be of service, please let me know, and I will make sure I get answers back to the questions.
Appreciate that very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right, a couple housekeeping things before we adjourn. First of all, I want to introduce you all know Becky Cottrell, who's our clerk. She's going to be clerking for us again this year. She'll be in the subcommittee, so you'll see her. And remember that if you want to record a vote in the full committee, you have to do that by 12:30 of the day the committee meets. For subcommittees, it's again, if they're in the morning, I believe it's 12:30 as well. If they meet in the evening, it's 5:30. You need to, of course, if the subcommittee goes longer than 5:30, obviously you'll be in subcommittee. But just remember for members to do that. Also, Ryan Brimmer and Tom Stevens, our able staff attorneys who are working with us again this year. But also want to introduce Claude Harrison, who's going to be our assistant clerk.
Claude's worked for the House Clerk's office before. He's not new to this process, but we appreciate him being here. And then we've got Madeline Kiefer, who's our page, who is from Manassas. So we appreciate her being here and helping us as we go through this first part of the session. If there's no other business to come before the committee, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. So there's a motion and a second to adjourn. All those